Hmm. That's right. We are doing it live right here on the show, which means we got to count it down, baby. Can I get full screen on the monitor in front of me, please? Thank you. That is correct. Who will turn it up as I turn down the canned rock music and we jump into Orange and Blue today? We are presented by Sean Honda, Cecil Lammey here, talking about the Denver Broncos. Andrew Mason will be joining me shortly from Centura Health Training Center. Things were interesting today out at Broncos headquarters, where I cut out a little bit early. The team was a little bit late. I'm curious to wonder if, a little bit of extra work in here on Raiders week. What are the Broncos doing and who can flip the switch? It's really a conversation that Mason and I were having out at Broncos training camp today. And it was about Frank Clark, mainly. In the last 2 days of Broncos practice, Frank Clark has put forth incredible effort. Like, this is effort we did not see in the preseason, even when he was playing in the fourth quarter. We did not see during training camp when, he wasn't as sharp, maybe veteran, had to get back up to speed, had to understand his surroundings. Whatever you want to say the reasons are, we've seen a switch that was flipped with Frank Clark. And what does that mean going forward for the Denver Broncos? We are left to wonder who else is flipping the switch as well for this team. And listen, plenty of veterans do that. Again, I'm not saying this as any sort of negative on Frank Clark, but one thing that Mason and I both noticed out there at Broncos practice is like Clark looks different. And he's reserved Jonathan Cooper at the top of the depth chart. And for me personally, I understand the nature of being a talk show host. I understand the nature of what we have to do when we talk about teams. And there's a radio side of things, there's a writing side of things, there's a video and digital side of things. And for me, I just want to talk ball. So when the captains are picked and Garrett Bowles wasn't a captain, I don't care. I literally do not care. Don't want to talk about it. Don't care about it. Don't think about it. When the depth chart comes out, and I saw this from a fantasy lens because a lot of fantasy GMs out there were like, Greg Dulcich isn't the number one tight end. I was like, pay attention. What's going on? I know people were saying, Jonathan Cooper, number one on the depth chart. What's going on with Frank Clark? Well, Frank Clark wasn't better than Jonathan Cooper. And we've been saying that, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, every day. Sound like Vic Fangio, every day in training camp. So yeah, Jonathan Cooper deserving of that spot. Frank Clark understanding his veteran role, and I like him better in that reserve pass rusher role. I like him coming through as a player you can bring off the bench. You can continue those waves of pass rushers. If you start out with Randy Gregory and Jonathan Cooper, that is a hell of a duo. And Randy Gregory is excellent for 10 games. And hopefully he stays healthier more than that. Jonathan Cooper, he's on the come up. He's taking that next step that we all expected from Baron Browning. Coop is the guy doing that. Browning should be okay later in the year. Chatted with him a little bit in the locker room, just basically how you doing, how you feeling, that type of stuff. But, we'll see Baron Browning later in the year. But now you bring in Frank Clark, Nick Bonito as your second wave. I think that's a great wave. Frank Clark as a starter isn't exciting to me anymore. I know he's the veteran, but there's no, and this is a message for everybody, like, stop with the faux outrage of every day I got to wake up and think what I'm mad about that I wasn't mad about yesterday. When the depth chart comes out and Frank Clark isn't a starter, I'm not shocked. I'm not dismayed. I'm not surprised, because it's what we've seen. Jonathan Cooper has been that guy. He's been incredible this offseason, and I'm looking forward very much so for him in the regular season to continue forward as a premier pass rusher for these Denver Broncos. And as a matter of fact, as we sit here on September 7th on the eve, not eve, I guess it's the same day of Thursday Night Football, but we got Thursday Night Football. We got the season opener. The Broncos play in 72 hours. Don't make me do math. Jonathan Cooper could lead this team in sacks. Again, Randy Gregory is an Pro Bowler for 10 games. If he plays more than that, then he'll lead the team in sacks because he's damn good. But Jonathan Cooper, do not sleep on this kid. So when the Broncos make this decision, listen, Sean Payton knows ball. And the great thing about Sean Payton this season is it doesn't matter if you were his draft pick, doesn't matter if you were undrafted, doesn't matter where you came from or how you got there, you're here. And if you made it on this Denver Broncos team and you can play, you're going to get that opportunity to play. Jonathan Cooper's been coming through every single day. And going back through the foggy memory, I'm like, I can't remember Cooper having really a bad day. I know that when the Rams were here for joint practices, he did not win a one-on-one rep in 2 days in the pit. Second day, he might have won one. I'll go back and check my notes. But either way, like you saw that, okay, against a different team, he looked different. He's been beaten up on, Isaiah Prince or whoever, or Garrett Bowles in practice. I get that. But Cooper is very deserving of that spot. And Frank Clark with his effort in training camp. But again, you could call it, veteran, not necessarily rust, but maybe getting through the aches and pains of training camp or maybe saving yourself. We know what Frank Clark is. We know what Frank Clark can do. The fact that the last 2 days he looks completely different and like great. Frank Clark looks great over the last couple of days. And again, I want to remind everyone that we don't see everything in practice. We honestly don't see much of practice. We see stretching. We see some warm-up drills. We see some one-on-one situations. But just the effort and the explosion, you see it with Frank Clark that you did not see in training camp, and it is glaring. So for me, it's probably a veteran who knows his role, and the Broncos probably told him his role as soon as he was signed on, like, hey, you're going to be that valuable reserve pass rusher, and we're going to go to you when we need you on those third down. You're like a third down specialist. And I think for guys like him, you'll see Buffalo do the same thing with Von Miller like they were doing last year, like, hey, when it really matters, we need you out there. And when it really matters, Frank Clark can be out there and he can make plays for this team. But he is flipping that switch. And it's great to see. Jonathan Cooper, he's like Jonathan Harris. And Harris is more, like rugged, workman-like defensive line versus edge, so to speak. But like guys like Harris, guys like Cooper, guys like Kareem Jackson, guys like Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, the switch is always on. The switch is always on. And there's no way around it. So there are players, and again, I don't think this is really a negative on Frank Clark, but it's one of those things where, yeah, he's flipping the switch. It's regular season mode. It's time to get to work, baby. And he is doing that now that the Broncos are preparing for the Las Vegas Raiders. And that is coming up, of course, in week 1 on Sunday at Empower Field at Mile High. So flipping the switch is just something what people do. And what veterans do. And again, I think it's great news for the Denver Broncos because you have young guys that have flashed that still need to polish their game. A Nick Benito would be a description of that. I think a Drew Sanders also would be a description for that. Like Drew Sanders is really good what he can do right now, and he can do more, probably rush the passer. Like that's what they're going to have him do. But you can tell out there, Josie Jewell is rock solid. Alex Singleton is rock solid. There's no issues with these two. Not even really with Jewell anymore in coverage. You don't necessarily want Singleton out there in coverage. He won't be. They won't task him with that. But you'll see a situation where Josie Jewell is in front of everything. He'll probably get a couple 3 picks this season. Much like he did last season, and his strong play and coverage continued for the Denver Broncos with a guy like Drew Sanders. And mostly it's those younger players, right? Where it's a Nick Benito. You looked great. You flashed. You need to sharpen your skill. You need to make sure that effort is there consistently. You're stacking moves consistently. With the Drew Sanders, it's like we've just seen a little bit of what they're going to ask him to do. And when they ask him to do more, how does he respond to that? How does he sharpen his game? And the great thing about what you're seeing from the likes of the everyday lunch pail guys, your Justin Simmons, he's always on it. Kareem Jackson, Pat Surtain, these guys are always on it, so to speak. It's infectious for those young players then for themselves to prepare properly, to be ready when practice comes around, and to learn quickly. I think that's the biggest thing that we could look at this season is who are the fast learners? Jaleel McLaughlin seems like a fast learner out there, and flip the switch. he is the switch. Like, he's the stick of dynamite that this team needs. So I think it's just interesting, and it's a conversation. Again, Andrew Mason will join me. He's at Centura Health Training Center. Broncos were a little bit late today, I should say. They weren't long per NFLPA rules. Like, no, but their practice was a little bit late. So I cut out early. Mesa's staying late. We got the double coverage for you right here. It's Orange and Blue today. We are presented by Sean Ponda. But I think this time of year and this start is when you can see the Broncos kind of take charge of their season, because every single game matters in the NFL season. It's too short for you to fall asleep in a game against the Raiders. There's been conversations that people have had within the media ranks about should Pat Surtain travel with Davante Adams. And Surtain doesn't need to flip the switch. Everything's always on with him. Does he want to see like Adams mano a mano? Does he want that matchup again? Does he want to get it done so he can kind of, make up for the problems and the bad play that he had against Davante Adams this last season? The answer is yes, but what's best for the team? I don't want to sound like Bill Lumbergh from Office Space, but like, what's best for the company? Well, what's best for the company of the Denver Broncos for me is that Pat Surtain just locks down one side of the field. First off, you're dealing with Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is coming up in my game plan. You'll be able to read that tomorrow at denversports.com. What's the best game plan for the Denver Broncos? It's rushing Jimmy Garoppolo, making Jimmy Garoppolo see ghosts like he already does, making him go short stuff. I could bring up the stats of average depth of target and how Derek Carr was, close to that top 12 where he was at. And then Jimmy Garoppolo was number 32. Like, there's just differences in these quarterbacks. I don't care if it's the Josh McDaniels system. Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. So why, when you can fool Jimmy Garoppolo so easily, when you can make him see ghosts immediately, like, why would you have Pat Surtain travel with Davante Adams and basically give away part of your coverage? Like, you can cover for that. And you can have Damari Mathis and bracket him over the top. Justin Simmons is going to be out there roaming around. And I've already said on this show and other shows, like, Justin Simmons will probably lead the league in interceptions again. So yeah, flip the switch, baby. You're fine. You're more than fine in this contest because you've got guys who are dogs and leaders. I know there's no dogs or leaders on this team. There's just captains. But one of the dogs on this team, you already know, and he's a leader as well. He's both. He's a dog leader. Leader dog? Lead dog? I don't know. But he's Pat Surtain. And you've got no worries there, no issues there. So let Jimmy Garoppolo sprinkle the short stuff. This is going to be a big game. And Mace has brought this up as well. Like, Hunter Renfrow is going to be a guy. Like, what do you do there? I had a chance to say what's up today to Asang Bassi. Didn't have a conversation with him and nothing that, I was recording or whatever, but I was just like, what's up? And to me, Asang Bassi is going to continue his strong play, and a matchup this week with Hunter Renfrow that savvy of the veteran receiver you're going to have to be concerned with. So the Broncos have the dogs and the leaders. The Broncos have the defensive teeth to kind of stop or take a bite out of the Raiders. Comes back to Josh Jacobs. We had that conversation yesterday. But in terms of flipping the switch, yes, that's a Frank Clark. You don't really need that from DJ Jones. He's always there when he's in. Zach Allen, he doesn't flip the switch. He's always on. Jonathan Harris has been a godsend basically for this team. He's always on. Your linebackers always on. Most of your secondary always on. Perhaps flip the switch would be for a Mathis, although Damari Mathis's play, and that's kind of what you expect from Mathis. Mathis is a player that will get burned and doesn't care. Now, he does care in terms of he doesn't want to get burned. I want to be very clear about that, but it doesn't stick with him. And the nice thing about Damari Mathis is he can flip that switch to game time where it's like he's going to get burned. And let's say there's a situation if Pat Surtain does not travel with Davante Adams, that Damari Mathis gives one up, right? Gives up a big play or maybe even a touchdown. You know what Damari Mathis is going to do? He's going to crinkle it up. He's going to throw it away. That's what that guy does. So that's the way that he flips the switch for the regular season mode. That's what we're at right now. And it's great to see for this Broncos team because things are different with Sean Payton. Things are serious with Sean Payton. There's a business-like atmosphere, but do not think that these players are not having fun together. And for me, it goes back to the spring when their first chance to get together with the new head coach, they had an opportunity to do more. They wanted to work out. They wanted to lift and run together, not install not work on any sort of football things, but they wanted to lift and run together. And I think that is better team building than a potato sack race or a three-legged race or an egg toss or a hula hoop competition or whatever that you had with Nathaniel Hackett. And the great thing about week one is we can finally start putting to bed and putting to rest, hopefully for good, anything that had to do with last year, right? It's like all the blowhards that have been talking about CU and some really big names that have been saying like they're the worst talent ever and they're terrible. It's like last year is last year, man. This is a new year. Dion and the Buffs already proved that. Like you can't talk about last year and people are upset because Dion gets rid of half those guys or all those guys. It's like, well, if they couldn't play, go get guys that can play. Go get guys that fit in your system. So I'll be happy when week one, when Sunday gets here, because it'll be about this season and what Sean Payton is doing right now. It'll be less about last year. But I know that this team and being around that locker room, and I've said this on the air, I don't know if I've said it here on Orange Blue Today, presented by Sean Ponda. Russell Wilson's one of the fellas. Russ is more in the locker room than he was last year. And during the media portion of Open Locker Room, like I didn't see Peyton Manning very much during the media portion of Open Locker Room. Any of the other quarterbacks, Drew Lock, you might see from time to time, whatever. Mostly if you're a starter, that's not a time for you. You're not going to be around the media types, whatever. Russell Wilson, I've seen a few times now in our opportunities with Open Locker Room, and I think it's been 3 days. So I think I've seen him every day that they've been open, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Today is Thursday, right? Is that right, Matthew? That's right. Anyway, so I look at it and I go, you know what? Russell Wilson, kind of one of the guys, nobody's talking to him like a scrum media situation, but you can go up and have a conversation with Russ. Last year, you couldn't do that. And I know the reports and get out of the Russ, just stop kissing the babies and all that, like Sean Payton, yeah. It's not about Russ Incorporated. I don't really care about Team 3. I care about the Denver Broncos. My job is better when the Denver Broncos are better. So I'm rooting for the Denver Broncos to be better. Not because I'm a Broncos fan, because as an analyst, you can't really be a fan. You shouldn't really be a fan. That's for another conversation for another show. But Russell Wilson in that locker room, showing just like being around the guys and the bonding that they've had, you see a closeness. I haven't seen this since, and don't get excited, Broncos country, okay? But I haven't seen this type of tightness in a locker room since Super Bowl 50, since those days when we would go in there and Aqib Talib would just put on a show. It was like the greatest time ever. I can still remember where his locker is right now. Like, just go to Aqib's locker. You're going to get a show. Whatever he's going to say, it's going to be awesome. And you want to be there for that. You get that same sort of feeling. And this isn't about, fun time, or I know in, previous years, Nathaniel Hackett, they had some board games laid out or whatever. It's not about any of that. But the togetherness of this team, they are working hard together. They are bleeding together. They are sweating together. They are working together. And this sort of group effort, a collective consciousness, if you will, for the Denver Broncos, has made things outstanding for this team, because you really get to see now the work that they've done. And because they're all working hard, and make no mistake about it, they are all working hard. Some are flipping the switch, like I said, with Frank Clark, where maybe he kind of eased into it. And again, it would be wrong of me to make bold accusations like Frank Clark was dogging it. Like, all I can tell you is Frank Clark didn't look that good. Last 2 days, Frank Clark has looked really good. So what's the difference? Oh, yeah, regular season mode. Oh, yeah, seasoned veteran. He's probably done this every year of his career. I could check in with my Seattle people. I could check in with Kansas City people that I know and be like, did Frank Clark do this there? Because he's doing it here. And it's interesting to see. But you look now at the work that they've done from the, running and lifting, and then the work in the offseason all the way. And you had training camp, all the preseason, all that. The work has led to now. And the now for this team to be ready and be together. I think that's the most important thing, and not to be hung up on Dion and the Buffs, but it's that, again, collective consciousness. We're not coming, we're here, and to have that sort of team spirit up in Boulder. Can you mimic the same thing in Centura Health Training Center? I think the answer is yes. There are no dissenters on this team. There may be players that you wonder about, Like later on, if you're not winning, how's Frank Clark react? He's been, there's been some locker room things with him in his various stops before. But right now, everyone's on the same page. Right now, everyone is ready to get to work, and the Denver Broncos collectively are ready to attack things in the way that Sean Payton wants them to. And that's another thing that you have to look at. You have to look at talented players who want it. The Broncos have had less talent in years past. They've had players who maybe were more about themselves than they were about the team. And I'm not talking about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's always been about the team, but the extra stuff, it's one thing that I've said with Josh Allen this year. I know it's not a Bills show, but with Josh Allen, he's got to be about football. I don't need to see Josh Allen on all the commercials. I don't need to see him on the Madden commercial. I don't need to hear about why Stephon Diggs is mad at him because he's not fully focused on football. Like, you have to be all about it. And if you're Buffalo, you're in a Super Bowl window that's closing. If you're the Broncos, you're trying to get to a playoff window that could potentially open a small gap for a championship window. Don't call me crazy, but that's where you're at with this team. And that's what you want to see from the squad, is this togetherness that you do see. And that locker room feels different. Again, things ran a little bit long today out at practice. When Mace can jump on with me, he will for this show. It's Orange Blue today. We are presented by Sean Honda. They are healthier than ever. One of the points that I've made in talking about not only this team, but every team across the National Football League, like, this is where you're at. You're not going to be healthier than this. So when I bring up Javonte Williams, and there's a great conversation around Javonte, what he's going to do, what the Broncos plan on doing at the running back position. With Javonte Williams, it's not like he's going to get healthier as the season goes on. I believe it was No Sean on 104.3 The Fan. He was filling in for Stoke today. No Sean was like, hey, you might wear that brace and then week 5 take it off. Maybe. And certainly No Sean knows a thing or two about playing running back in the National Football League and dealing with knee injuries. So maybe Javonte wears the brace for a month and then takes it off, or maybe he just wears it the whole time because he will never be healthier than he is right now. We know that about the NFL season. I talked about Randy Gregory, who's fantastic, until he's banged up. So healthy as you can be right now. What does that mean for Javonte Williams? I think that still means you're safe with him. I think that still means you're going to use a 3-headed committee. Jaleel McLaughlin has moved his way into being part of that 3-headed committee. Samaje will still be fine. And the best way I put it, without revealing too much about what's going on at practice, is that Javonte has his role as the lead back. He will be the lead back. I expect him to lead the team in snaps and touches at the running back position. Samaje, I think, is more of your closer to pay dirt type of guy because of his size, his passing ability, his pass blocking ability. I think if you need a fast break offense, or if you're between the 20s, that's where Jaleel McLaughlin can come in, because Jaleel is the type of player, you could be 3rd and 17, you run a screen pass and he gets 25. It could be 3rd and 12 and you run a draw play and he takes it 80 yards to the house. Like, that's what you're looking at with the Jaleel McLaughlin. So I think based on down and distance and where you're at on the field is how the Broncos will use these running backs. I do not believe that it's going to be one series for Javonte, one series for Samaje, few plays here for Jaleel. I don't believe that. I could be wrong. Again, we don't yet truly know what Sean Payton has in store for that running back position. We know that it's going to be interesting and exciting when he does unveil it to us. And I think that could mean Javonte, lead back, Samaje helping with those lead back roles. Javante's almost a second starter. What is it? Second breakfast, right? Is that right on Lord of the Rings? Yeah, second breakfast, bed and breakfast. Like, with Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine, you have like a starter and a starter. And honestly, Jaleel McLaughlin, he could start in this league. He could. And I feel if Javonte was a little bit banged up, Samaje's role would stay the same, and it would be Jaleel's role that would grow. Don't want to say that. Don't want to invoke that. Don't you bring that on me, Ricky Bobby. Like, I don't want to bring that up, but we have to look forward because you're healthier than ever. You have to plan for when you're not healthy. What do you do when Randy Gregory's banged up? Because he's going to get banged up. That's just what his game is. Well, you've got Cooper, you got Benito on the come up, a guy like Thomas and Coombe. making a 53. Like, that's an exciting young player who is a fast learner as well. He's got better as training camp, the preseason went on. So, you're healthier than ever, but you can't, football's not love, baby. You may love football. I love football. I love second breakfast, but like, listen, love is forever. Football is for now. What have you done for me lately? And healthier than ever is what they are right now. It doesn't mean that's what they will be. And it doesn't mean that's what the Broncos will be come week 2, even, or week 4 or week 8. Like, you have to have plans in place for that. And I feel that they do. Obviously, there's a talent gap. Obviously, there's a drop in talent when you go from starters to reserves. You might have to go pick up a veteran at whatever position you're looking at. These are all part of future conversations for the Denver Broncos. But just know right now, don't think that Javonte, who is, I've said he's about 85%. Again, could be wrong. He might be 90%. I know he's not 100%. I can guarantee you that Javonte Williams is not 100% healthy. So because he's not 100% healthy, he's not going to get healthier as the season goes on. So you can love Javonte Williams. I love Javonte. I was the only one in the country that had him as the number 1 running back over Najee Harris when he came out of North Carolina. The dude can ball. He reminds me of Nick Chubb. He could be one of the best backs in the league if he was ever what he was supposed to be. And the mistakes that were made in years past, splitting time with Melvin Gordon, that makes 0 sense. 0 sense. And, well, we may never get to see Javonte and what he truly could have been for this Broncos team. So either way, if I look at this situation, you're healthier than ever at all the positions of the players that you're worried about, you're concerned about. Does DJ Jones make it through the entire season? If he does, that's great, because he's awesome when he's healthy. So there are a few players out there that you have to say, okay, you're healthy now, and fingers crossed you stay healthy for the rest of the season. It's Orange Blue today, presented by Champ Honda. Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason is at the Broncos facility. We'll see if Mace can jump on here before we're done with today's show. And hopefully he can. If he cannot, well, then we'll have another day with Andrew Mason. Both of him and I will be back out there tomorrow at noon. So the schedule for the Broncos is basically noon to 3 for us media types. But if it goes a little bit long, that means we might have to do some of these some more solo shows, or just have Mace check in when he can. Because, again, I had to take off a little bit early from Broncos Open Locker Room. Do want to tell you that Greg Dulcich is back in action. He had personal reasons yesterday, a funeral that he had attended, and we send all of our best. Greg Dulcich is one of the good guys, and I know I've had my issues with his blocking. Last year, I had issues with his lower body. I think his lower body is better. Certainly his quads and his bubble look much stronger this year. From a locker room perspective, it's only weird if you make it weird, baby. But like his lower body, you can tell, and I haven't talked to Greg about this, and perhaps I will in the locker room. Like, he did something to work on his lower body. Like, it was more of an emphasis from last season with the hamstring injuries, plural, to this season staying relatively healthy. And we know that he's a weapon. And speaking of usage, because I told you how I think these running backs are going to be used, and that means Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be used. Samaje Perine, when you're close to pay dirt, I believe is going to be used. Javonte Williams is going to be your lead back. At the tight end position, and I get questions like, who's the joker? What's the joker? What's going on here? Like, I think Greg Dulcich can be a red zone threat, to be sure. He can stretch the field, there is no doubt. But in this offense, how many deep shots are you going to take a game? Couple 3? Maybe 4 shots a game? Like downfield shots. How many explosive plays that aren't, 3-yard passes come from this Broncos offense? That's what we're waiting to see. And Greg Dulcich is out there. I think he's a red zone threat for this team. I think Troutman works between the 20s. Troutman can also work in the red zone as well. So we'll continue to watch that situation and see what happens with these Denver Broncos, and, well, what happens at that tight end position. They're going to use both. Manhurts is going to block. Like, this is what's going to happen. I did have a chance to say what's up to Jerry Jeudy today. The audio, I hope y'all can hear it enough. The locker room was a little rowdy today in a good way. But I do have some Jerry Jeudy audio that I want to play for you because there is question marks about whether he will play or he won't play. And when asked today, will he push the coaching staff to play against the Raiders? This is what Jerry Jeudy had to say.
Oh, I'm being 100% smart about it. Depending, I gotta listen to my body. So if I feel good, I'm good. If I don't, I don't. So it all depends on how I'm feeling.
There you go. So there's Jerry Jeudy in a vociferous, rowdy Broncos locker room today. He said, hey, he's good. He's got to listen to his body, and he's not going to push the coaches whatsoever. But Jeudy was out there, and, again, what can we reveal from practice? All I can tell you is he did more than he did yesterday, and that's a good thing. There were some reports, and I don't know who it was, so I don't want to necessarily attack anybody. It might have been one of us. I don't know. Somehow got out there because I've had some national people reach out to me and be like, Jerry Jeudy's 75% speed. I didn't see that. I saw, and he's not 100% speed. Again, healthier than ever, right? Jerry Jeudy's not 100% speed. Okay. So I'm going to be very clear about that. But 75%, that's an inaccurate report, my opinion. Now we can get into semantics and what's 80% and what's 75 and what's 85. I don't care, baby. Like none of that matters. All I know is I watched Jerry Jeudy for 2 days. He did some stuff yesterday. He stopped at a certain point of practice. Today, for the media portion of practice, we saw him do more. And I'm not saying 100% because he cannot be 100%. But Jerry Jeudy's pushing to play just by what he did on the field. He himself, and you just heard the audio, hopefully you heard it. Was it okay, Matthew? I hope it was okay. But Matthews are behind the scenes on the ones and twos. But I look at the situation with Jeudy, give him a week off, right? Let him have the week, go against the Commanders, have him ready. I would much rather that. The team will be smart with him. But just know in my eyewitness reports of watching Jerry Jeudy, he looks pretty good. He's not 100%. He's not 75%. That was, I think that's fake news. I think that's inaccurate. Again, don't know who reported it. I just had people asking me, I heard Jerry Jeudy was 75%. I'm like, well, there's not many of us out there, which is good. I love it so much. Thank you, Lord. I am a credential snob. So training camp kind of gets to me when all the part-timers are there. Hey, Broncos practice. I'm there every day and I love it every day. And I want to watch ball. I want to talk ball. We get to watch ball tonight on Thursday Night Football. Either way, I'll probably check my phone. Yeah, it looks like Mace probably texted me. But yeah, we ran a little long today. It's fine, baby. Light and sweet. That's how we do it. We'll bring you the best information right here. denversports.com. I want you to go there, sign up for that Denver Sports Daily. It's free, hot and fresh, right to your inbox. All the top news, Avs, Nuggets, Rockies, Buffs, Broncos, and more. One spot, free, no damn paywall. It's denversports.com. Go there, sign up for that Denver Sports Daily. So check out our website. Our growth has been amazing. We love you guys for that response. The growth on this YouTube channel, on Denver Sports YouTube channel, has been fantastic. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. We certainly appreciate you all for doing that because that has really helped grow this channel. And if you've commented in the chat room, 1, thank you. 2, comment down below as well. It helps the YouTube algorithm in addition to liking and sharing and all those sorts of things. I am Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason. I'll see him tomorrow. He'll be back on the show. We'll get on the right schedule, baby. So no worries there. It's Orange and Blue today, presented by Sean Ponda. I'm Cecil Lammey. Until next time, saying be safe. It's from Kenpo, everybody. Be kind. Know that you're appreciated. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.